ready to get started. I would like to call to order the Norwood City School District Board of Education Committee meeting for March 10th, 2022. Mrs. Camphouse, please call the roll.
Mr. Allen?
Present.
Mrs. Cole?
Present.
Ms. Fowler?
Present.
Mrs. Rarick is absent. Mr. Taylor?
Present.
I'd like to ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, just one piece of housekeeping before we begin. Section 3 in our agenda is the adoption of tonight's agenda. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the agenda for tonight as written.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Camphouse, please call the roll.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Fowler?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
With the agenda adopted, I'd like to move on to Section 4, which is our presentation. And 4.01 is Science, Technology, Engineering, Math Opportunities for Students. And I'd like to welcome Katie and Marshall Dykes.
I'm just going to use this. All right. So the Norwood Innovation Lab, or the STEM Lab, was created to increase student problem solving and math skills 3 years ago. I did it first for 2 years. I'm Katie Dykes. I currently do STEM at Williams, and then I do 5th grade science for 2 bells at Williams also.
I'm Marshall Dykes, Katie's husband. I do half the year at Norwood View and half the year at Sharpsburg. Now, we're special.
Yeah. So we wanted to combine the ideas of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, with the freedom of a makerspace. And with Ms. Jessen's help, we came up with some goals 3 years ago that we wanted all students to kind of accomplish by the end. So we wanted students to learn how to actually work collaboratively, where they knew how to listen to somebody else's ideas, and even though it wasn't their idea, it could still work, and be able to problem solve within that together. We wanted them to solve real world problems. Things like, we're going to buy a windmill, we need to figure out a place to put it. We need to find something to hold all these ping pong balls in our classroom, let's build something. We wanted students to collect and use their own data, which was a big math piece, that they're actually doing the measuring, they're writing it down, they're comparing it to other people, and we wanted everything to be hands-on learning.
As a science teacher for 20 years, and when I talk to other science teachers, one consistent thing comes up when I ask teachers, how are your kids doing in class? Everyone says they have no ability to persevere. When things get tough, when they hit a frustration, I have so many kids who just shut down. They don't know how to internalize those emotions and work through it. So we tell our kids from day one, every single class, every time you walk in this room, expect to be frustrated, expect to be challenged. From the lowest kid to the highest kid, every kid who walks in has a challenge in front of them. And we work through frustrations when they hit. We talk about the emotions, ways to get through that, and so that you can be prosper in the world. Because there is no one who lives a life without frustration. At some point, you have to learn how to persevere. We work on fostering independence. The first day, the kids think Mr. Dykes is the awesomest guy, and I give them this cool project, and every hand goes up, I need help. And I say, I'm sorry, I won't. And I'm no longer the awesomest guy. You told me you were cool, and now you're not going to help me. You're not going to do this project for me? I am not. I refuse to do it for you. You're going to learn to do some things today yourself. I won't come over and do it. I'll give you hints. I'll give you a pep talk. But in the end of the day, the thing you built is the thing you built, not that I built for you. We do a lot of self-evaluation. When projects are over, we talk about what went well. What ideas did you have that worked? How did your group work together? Were there anything you might try differently next time? And then obviously we utilize the design process. We want to make sure, we work with Mr. Schimmer quite a bit, we want to make sure that the things that we're doing in elementary school feed and lay a nice foundation for when we get to middle school and high school. When we built this program, we started by going and meeting as many STEM teachers in the area as we could. We went to their classrooms. We had unbelievably long conversations with them. We went to a bunch of conferences. We watched YouTube videos. We scour the internet on a nightly basis trying to find new things, innovative ideas to bring into our program. But I think one of the strongest parts of the program we currently have is that we are constantly and consistently in the classrooms of our 3rd grade math teachers, our 4th grade science teachers, and we are saying to them, what are the projects, the problems your kids are having right now? Earlier this year, I got to Sharpsburg. I've been there for about a month now, and a 3rd grade teacher said, my kids are having such a hard time with area and perimeter. Can you help? I said, absolutely. We've built houses, and we talked about the perimeter and the area of those houses. They had a real-world connection to something they had done that related back to the classroom. Mrs. Dykes recently had a math teacher say to her, my kids are struggling with angles and protractors. 3 days later, she had a project ready to go where kids build ping pong ball shooters, and they have to adjust the angles with protractors. They're using the tools in real-world situations. And we think that is one of the absolute strengths of our program.
Mm-hmm. This year we've had a unique opportunity with Xavier University. Dr. Lauren Angeloni has been meeting with me since July. She comes over to the Williams Avenue STEM classroom and observes me, and she brings her Xavier students over, and they work with our students and come up with lessons and teach them, and then I go to Xavier and teach them about STEM and best practices and how to set up a classroom and how to order supplies and all those real world things they don't necessarily teach you in college. And then we're hoping that that will continue to go back and forth. She's the director of their science and math department for the education department. So it's just a nice little partnership that we've started to form that we hope grows.
Absolutely.
You can start first and second.
All right, so I've taught 5th grade for 20 years, and when I took the STEM job, I was fairly confident that I was going to do fine with 3rd graders and 4th graders and 5th graders, but those little ones absolutely had me scared. I did not know how this was going to go. I will tell you this, I recently had to leave Sharpsburg and come to View, and when I did, it did break my heart to leave all of my students. They were wonderful, they worked so hard for me, but to leave those little ones was crushing, because man, they walk into your room every single day, lights on, this is the coolest place I've ever been, and we're going to do the most amazing things that have ever been done, ever, and we're going to do them today and tomorrow, and they are so into it. They eat it up, they gobble up STEM, so they flourish. I loved my 1st and 2nd graders this year. Primarily, what we work on, the curriculum that we work on, we talk a lot about building things, structures. We talk about perspective, the difference between form and function. Something looks pretty, but it falls apart. Maybe not the best form or the best function. We do a lot with geometrics. We give them shapes. A bunch of triangles, and we say, what other shapes can you make out of these triangles? Here are some parallelograms. Can you put these parallelograms together in a way that makes a 6-sided star? And that is hard for them. The idea of taking shapes and in your brain sort of combining those shapes to make other shapes is frustrating, and they do such a nice job of just believing in themselves and giving themselves some grace. I wish my 5th graders could give themselves the grace to fail that my 2nd graders do. Because they're amazing at going, well, today wasn't great, Mr. Dykes. But I'll be here tomorrow, and tomorrow I'll probably go great. And my 5th graders sometimes, today wasn't good, Mr. Dykes. Oh. And I have this long talk about, hey, you can do it, you got this. They're phenomenal. We love our 1st graders. Oh, and we work with Kiva blocks, we work with Legos, Magnet tiles, and...
Once we finish doing, sorry, the clicker's not working. Once we finish with kind of the toy-based building and structures, we move into more making structures out of what you would call recyclable materials. We're doing the sink and float experiments where they're building boats and testing them and then redesigning them. They're making, simple musical instruments. My kids made pan flutes the other day, and we talked about high and low pitch. And then we do some very basic introductions to robotics. They can't walk into our STEM classrooms and see all these Lego, EV3 robotics, and Dash robots, and other, electronic toys and not ever touch them. And everything is at the student's viewpoint. So we use the, primary friendly Go app for the Dash robots, and they get to kind of get an idea of how they work so that when they're in 3rd grade and they use them regularly, they have some familiarity. You got it? No, that's the same one.
Is that the same one? Hold on. There.
One more.
There we go. 3rd grade.
Third grade, our STEM projects revolve around building structures also. It's kind of that scaffolding method, but we bring in the scientific method and investigations and that idea of tracking data, doing lots of measuring, writing down our measurements, drawing our picture first before we actually build something. And then we also get into more of coding and actual robotics. So we start in third grade with a lot of collaboration projects. That idea of like, how do you talk to a partner? How do you both bring up your ideas? How do you tell somebody like, their idea might not be the best, or maybe my idea isn't the best, and I have to accept that. And then we move into catapults, where you're changing the angle of things and measuring the distance that it travels. We do pendulum experiments. Sorry. Yeah, there you go. And then we move into the three little pig houses, which is one of my personal favorites, where the students have to build the fourth little pig house. They have to build it with very specific specifications or constraints. They use support structures, and at the end, we come in with a wolf mask on. It's the only thing Ms. Chesson has ever questioned me on an ordering form. But she went through the Amazon order, and it was a big order, and she was like, I just have to know, why is there a wolf mask on this? And the kids wear the little pig noses, and we come in with our high horsepower leaf blower, and start at one end of the hallway and come closer and closer to them, and their hair is blowing in the wind.
And there's an anemometer sitting in
Yeah.
front of the house, measuring the actual wind speed that's hitting that house, so we can track the data when the house fails. The data is collected, and we can use that data to make determinations about how sharp the wind blowing is.
So here, like this is one of the pictures where the wind's blowing them. And then they're tracking it all on a data sheet, and at the end, we always go back to like, why did Sarah's house not have a roof blow off? Why did Sam's house come off of the support system? And we talk about what we could do differently the next time.
Fourth grade is primarily electronics. We start this unit off in a very grab your attention sort of way. I say to my students, you have no idea how spoiled you are, what gift has been bestowed upon you that is electricity. And just give you some inkling into what I mean by that. I'm going to take electricity away from you for one day. So they walk in my room and it is completely dark. There are like 4 small candles burning around the room, and I give them a small bag. In the bag is a battery, a wire, and a light bulb. And I say, you have the tools to make that light bulb light. Find a way to make it light. And 15 minutes later, we are frustrated because you can only make a battery, a wire, and a light bulb touch so many ways, and it has not worked. And man, we are starting to get, and then suddenly across the room there's a flicker. And then there's another flicker, and another flicker. And then suddenly somebody has a light bulb just going, it's on. And like they figured it out. And then Mr. Knight comes over and gives them more supplies. And now they take these supplies and they combine it with those supplies, and they make a lamp that is just sitting on their desk, lighting up. And then suddenly there's another lamp, and another lamp. And by the time the class is over, you have 10, 12 desks, all with lamps on them burning. Every kid in the room has got it. And I will tell you this, when they walk back in my room the next day, and I say, make that light bulb light. Every kid in the room can do it. Because if you have struggled for 20 minutes in a dark room to make a light bulb light, man, you will not forget how to make that light bulb light. From there, we start looking at simple circuits, parallel circuits, series circuits, and kids will start building their own fans with motors. We'll introduce LED lights, which have to be wired slightly differently than incandescent bulbs do. And then they have to build a model house, and they have to put the electrical systems that they have built into those houses. So the upstairs has to have a fan that works on an independent switch, and the downstairs has to have 2 LED lights that work on a separate switch.
And these are just some examples of like, this is them doing like the wiring, the samples of the houses. And then we also, again, do, like we try to collaborate with the different teachers. This is that ping pong ball launcher with the protractors on it that we designed with our teacher cards, our maker cards, so that we can kind of support what they're doing in the classroom. Thank you. So in 5th grade, we both taught 5th grade science for 20 years. We feel like we're very well versed in it, and we've always done a lot of STEM with them, so a lot of projects have just kind of grown within the STEM program. So we start with problem solving. When I was little, I shoved a weeble wobble down our bathtub drain, and my dad spent several days trying to get it out because he didn't want to call a plumber. So that's our first project for 5th grade, is they basically all get a drain, and it's filled with like 8 different things in it, and then we give them a Ziploc bag full of like spoons and pipe cleaners and magnets and other random stuff. and they have to try to fish everything out of it. Making their own tools, it's filled with water, they have to be the student who gets all the things out and most of the water out without spilling any. They're not allowed to pick the drain up because you can't do that at home. And it's real problem solving. Things are going to go wrong in your house. And then you can do microscopes.
Sure. In 5th grade, we cover microscopes. We don't give kids pre-prepared slides. Instead, we go out and we get the dirtiest, muckiest pond water we can find, and we have kids make their own slides. And I will tell you, when a child is looking through a microscope inside of a drop of water and a rotifer swims across, there's an alien. There is an alien, and this thing looks bizarre. It's got 9 heads and 3 hearts. What is that thing, Mr. Dykes? And then they have guide sheets. They have to identify as many of the items they're seeing as they can. I had the absolute most amazing thing happen. We have cameras that attach to our microscopes. So this happened in real life. We were watching on the big TV screen, inside of a drop of water, we were watching the small little herbivore. We talk about producers and consumers and decomposers and herbivores and omnivores and carnivores in 5th grade. That is our curriculum. And we're watching this small little, I think a nematode, and it was chewing on an algae cell. And I go, look, there's a herbivore, and it's eating. And then it was the perfect timing, the clouds aligned. A rotifer came out of nowhere and just gobbled it up. And the whole, and I was like, that was a food chain. Like, you just saw a food chain inside of a drop of water. Like, and then they go like, whoa, the world is like a different place than I sort of thought it was. It kind of changes your perspective on the world that you live within. We love that.
So in 5th grade, we do the windmill project. Again, like real problem solving, the world is switching to different types of energy. And they have to design a windmill that will work in 4 different wind locations, basically different fans set up around the room. The idea is that whatever windmill can get at least 15 spins at all locations wins like the little windmill trophy. And there's a lot of comments of like, but we all worked really hard. We should all get a trophy. And like, but if I was somebody buying a windmill, I'm not going to buy all of them. I'm only going to buy one of them. That's kind of the way the real world works. So they can use whatever they want for like the skinning of the blades. Math is involved because of balance, because the system we have with Connects, they have to use an even number. Most windmills nowadays are 3-bladed, or wind turbines. And most of them, from like researching and looking up pictures and gathering data beforehand, want to do 3 blades, and they all try it, and it doesn't work because it just kind of sits there. Because there's 8 slots, so you have to do an even number. That's done on purpose. So there's some pictures of kids trying things out. And then we move into rockets.
I've done rockets for 15 years as a 5th grade science teacher. They have to draw out a technical diagram with all the angles, all the measurements, all the materials for the rocket they want to build. And I have to approve that drawing. And then they have to try to create the thing that they drew that they said they were going to build. And that is a much harder thing to do if you haven't tried it before. And oftentimes you'll realize that your design was faulty. When you have 3 inches of tape on the nose cone and you put 3 inches of tape on, it doesn't go all the way around. You suddenly realize there's no way that 40 PSI isn't going to rip that nose cone right off. And so now you have to go back to your drawing and change your diagram, get it reapproved, and come back, put more tape on the nose cone. We take them out, we shoot them. Some of them do amazing, they go over 200 feet. Some of them explode on the spot. Some of them get dug and then they fall. We bring them back, we collect all the data on how far they went, come back in the room, we analyze the data, we look at the rockets that did well, we say, what things do these rockets have in common? What is likely to have caused these rockets to perform better than these other rockets? And why do these rockets not perform so well? Maybe 13 fins isn't a good number of fins. It didn't seem to go real well. And then they have to build a second rocket based on what they learned from the first, except Mr. Dykes does a very nasty thing. He changes the parameters. I changed the constraints. On the first rocket, there was this beautiful tubes that some machine somewhere made for you that were perfect and plastic and lightweight and strong. And you're like, that's the one I'm thinking, because all the rockets that won had that plastic tube. And when you come back in, those materials have all been removed. The only thing you have left is paper and tape. The rocket that counts, the real rocket, is only made of paper and tape. So you have better to learn something from those first rockets if your second rocket is going to be good. I will tell you that Sharpsburg's playground is enormous. It is 300 feet long. And in 15 years doing this project, I've only had 2 rockets go over the fence into what I call the world record of rockets. This year, something must be going well, because this year, Sharpsburg had 2 rockets go over the fence and make it into the world record of rockets. And I will tell you, I had a high school student this year come back and visit me, Juliana Craig, and she walked in the room and she said, "Mr. Dykes, how have you been? I've missed you." She gave me a hug, and then the first thing out of her mouth was, "Has anyone beat my rocket?" To which the answer was no. On Juliana's rocket is written on the side, the measurement we had to come up with was the yellow house. Because her rocket hit the yellow house across the street. There was no way to measure the actual distance. So we just wrote the yellow house on her rocket, and to this day it holds the record.
We think our classroom environment is really important. We put a lot of time into it. We want students to walk into our classrooms and realize this is a different space for a different type of learning. Like I said before, all of the robotics are out like on display. There are screwdrivers, there are grown-up scissors, there are wire cutters, and other tools that they're going to be using on a regular basis, and we want them to know that, like, you can touch them sometimes, but not whenever you want. There's lots of live animals. I've lost count of what we have. The kids ask all the time, and I'm like, I don't know. And it's just exposing kids to a different type of learning and a different type of world. And in our opinion, it's the 21st century world. Like, you're not going to walk into most office buildings anymore and just sit at a desk. You're going to have to work with other people, whether you like them or not.
Work through frustrations.
But you have to work through those frustrations and be able to problem solve on your own, which is something we all also learned during COVID. Last slide, we're almost done. We would like to give a couple things. One, to administration, specifically to Ms. Chesson. She supports us in some of our craziest ideas. She very rarely questions anything anymore, especially with like ordering forms. She has a lot of faith and trust in us, and we appreciate that.
We have to thank the maintenance department. They've helped us with moving some really weird things, some big things, heavy things. They have come into our rooms and done a number of modifications to make these rooms STEM-ready rooms with new sinks and new other things. They have been absolutely far and above wonderful to work with.
And they're also very kind. Like a week ago, Mr. Peters came running into my room. "You cannot use a fog machine. You cannot." And I was like, "I've used a fog machine for like 8 years." And he was like, the system's totally different. You can't use it. It's going to make everything go off. The fire department's going to show up. And then I found out the silhouettes made the fire department show up yet last night. We're doing the same exact thing. But I did not use the fog machine. I'm happy that it was them and not me. And finally, thank you to the tech department. We are fairly tech savvy ourselves, but there are often early morning phone calls of, "Oh my goodness, the Lego app isn't working." Or, "We forgot to tell you that we need the Vernier, graphic analysis software put on the elementary computers, not just the high school." And they're always very quick to help us out, so we appreciate it.
Thank you for your time and
Thank you very much for
attention.
your time.
If you have any questions, we'd be happy to field them.
So you're both going around and doing the STEM things with everybody and not?
I'm just at Williams this year because I'm also back to 5th grade science. So I'm doing like the 2 5th grade science bells first thing in the morning from 8:30 to 10:30 while the specials teachers are helping 6th grade. And then I do specials the rest of the day.
And I am
You're
all specials all the
traveling?
time, but I'm the half the year at Sharpsburg and the second half of the year at View. So this year I started at Sharpsburg and I moved to View. Moving was hard, so I think what I'm going to do is stay at View and be at View for the first half of next year, and then in the middle move back to Sharpsburg.
You know?
Well, I really appreciate when you drop stuff off on our porches when we were,
Oh, you're cool.
when we were during
Yeah.
COVID. I mean, I was telling
Teaching
all my
STEM,
friends, I'm like,
virtually
our
is-
science teacher drops off experiments on our porch. Because everybody's like, wah, wah, wah. We're not doing anything, and I'm like, psh.
We have some fun pictures of like us on a Saturday morning with like our father-in-law, and like my kids, and our entire basement's full of like boxes and Ziploc bags, and we're putting marshmallows.
Piles of rubber bands,
Ice cream and rubber
skewers,
bands.
yeah, like lengths of string. My kids got them. That's not 12 inches, Claire.
Yeah, so our kids lead a very exciting life.
Yeah, our kids have to test out any project we do. They have to test it first. So they've learned quite a bit of STEM as well. I
They
think
bring
just
their friends
testing
over,
out things
build
we've
their
done.
houses and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Anything else? Yes.
Yeah, so I have a couple of questions. First is, and you may not know the exact answer to this, but what percentage of the elementary students are taking advantage of this program?
All of them, except for kindergarten.
Kindergarten time
Currently-
is your next
Currently,
year.
we have programming for 1st grade through 5th grade.
But it's just for Sharpsburg and,
No, it's
So
wrong.
I'm for Sharpsburg and View,
yeah,
and Case and Williams.
you're doing what? So
Yeah.
all of our elementary students.
All the kids, we're a special, so art, music, gym, and STEM.
Okay, all right, that's fantastic. And then, we've been doing this for 3 years now?
Yes, but last year was like virtual.
Yeah,
Yeah, but like so like Ms. Rarica said, I would drop stuff off on porches and then kids, the idea was we weren't able to touch anything anyways last year technically at the beginning of the year.
right,
So on Wednesdays when like everybody was home,
right,
like anybody could meet with me.
gotcha,
Like they were like open meetings. So students, like the kids who weren't virtual,
right,
their teachers would pass out like the STEM bags at school to take home. And then students who were like in Edgenuity, I
right,
would drive around and drop it off or like do pickup sites. Like you can meet me at Williams at any point in this 2-hour period and I'll be sitting on the playground.
gotcha. So for this year, because we'll say year one is, just kind of getting your
Yeah.
feet wet, and year two was COVID. So this year, as we progress through this year, how have you seen, or have you had any conversations with your other colleagues about how this has impacted the other learning opportunities? Like, have they taken some of the working through frustrations here and applied that in other areas?
You go first.
I don't know specifically about like the frustration piece, like that's not how teachers have phrased it, but I know like the primary teachers, 1st and 2nd grade, a lot of the teachers have come and said, because we really didn't know what we were going to do with them at first.
Right.
So in the summer, we reached out to like Christina Shore and Laura Brisgott and some other people, and they were like, if you could help with like geometry, you would think kids would be really good at shapes. They're not. And so lots of them have said like, oh, our kids now realize you can take 2 triangles and put them together and it makes a square. Or you can take these shapes and put them together and, it'll make a parallelogram. Or even just like the rotation of something, like changing the positioning. They've said that's helped a lot, like in the math department for them, along with like the basics of like adding, writing down numbers on like a chart, because we do that even at the young age. And then the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teachers have liked that they can come and say like, we need support with angles, we need support with this type of math skill, fractions, like we're doing a whole gearing lesson in 5th grade. They spend all year learning fractions.
I can say that, and this is my first year in STEM, but prior to this, 7th and 8th grade teachers would say on a regular basis, I know every kid in my room who sat in your class, because that kid can make a chart, can put data in that chart, and can read the data that's in that chart. Every single kid who sat in your room can do that. So we're doing even more of that now that we have STEM. So I can't imagine that with kids having exposure to grab more data, more charts, more measurements in 3rd grade, and then 4th grade, and then 5th grade, that we're not going to see that continue to build.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm going with this, is I would really be interested to see, as we continue with this down the years, those kids who are getting that exposure at 1st and 2nd grade, how that helps them, on the testing score specifically for math,
Yeah.
as you get 3rd and 4th.
Yeah, and most STEM programs, the teacher will be like, we're gonna learn about this science concept, and we're gonna learn about this science concept, and we're gonna learn about microscopes. We went the totally different route where we said, we're gonna look at math standards,
Yeah,
like that was our entire focus, and then like the sciences, they were like, make it fun.
right,
So like in 4th and 5th grade, we do like a fraction unit, but it's all around like gearing up and like gearing down a car. Like there's a solar panel car over there, and then like they add gears or, put smaller, bigger gears and learn like the fraction, like ratio and proportion pieces with it.
right.
So that's the hope.
I see nothing
Is
but
that-
positive things here. Like this is, I want to do more of this, but in other programs. Like I want to take this and figure out some way to translate that to, language arts or English. Or
More
do the same
hands-on,
thing with
less
social studies.
worksheets. Please,
So,
We agree with this.
More of
We
this.
agree with this statement.
and all the things.
And I will say personally, like when the 3rd graders first started coming, their frustration level was high.
3rd grade's a big change. 3rd grade is, on our programming, 1st and 2nd grade is a lot of creativity and imagination. 3rd grade is data, man. 3rd grade is measurement and accurate and again and again
But
and
as
again.
the year has progressed,
They grow.
like they have gotten better with
But
the
it's
failure.
a struggle for them.
The redoing it, the like actually using a ruler and realizing all those little lines between the 1 and the 2 matter.
No one in my room, now will draw a line like this. Every kid now knows, I need a ruler, or he's going to throw it away.
It matters.
You are not allowed to freehand a line in this classroom. It will be drawn with straight lines.
So we feel like it's very impactful. So, anything else?
Any other questions?
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Is it okay if we kind of clean up our stuff?
I'm exhausted after that. I'm like still on edge listening to Marshall. I'm like,
All right, so we're going to move on in our agenda. Section 5 is personnel, and I'd like to turn the floor over to Superintendent Ronan.
Thank you, President Atwood. On 5.01, we have retirements, and I'd like to congratulate Susan Martini, our 6th grade teacher at the middle school, who is retiring, and also Kimberly Cottrell, who is our EMIS, which is the Electronic Management Information System. She's retiring. Also, in 5.02, we have a number of administrative contracts that are coming due this year. So that's what number 1 is. Number 2 is, it's a supplemental contract for our PE teacher. It says assistant athletic director, but it's really our site manager. When the AD isn't here or he's off somewhere, these individuals make sure that everything's locked up and secure at the end of practice. Then, as you see in there, there is a change of status as Shannon, our Director of Special Education, told you last month that she would like to return to the classroom because she misses her students for next year. So that change of status is in there. And then Michelle Witt, who is our Student Data Support Secretary, she is moving into the EMIS coordinator because we have to have someone in that position because the state requires millions of pieces of data each year. So it's an important position. Then let's see, under number 4, we have some pupil activity contracts. Same thing, Mr. Lockhart's gonna be basically the site manager to lock up. And number 4 is a correction. We're moving it. Reagan she's the assistant softball coach, not the softball coach. So that's a correction. So thank you, and that concludes the employment information.
All right. Anybody have any questions, comments? Thank you, Superintendent Ronan. We're going to move on to item 6 in our agenda. That's the Building and Grounds Committee report. And I'd like to turn the floor over to Board Member Mrs. Rarica.
well, thank you very much. We've got a pretty exciting event coming to Shea Stadium, an Easter egg drop from helicopter, presented by the Norwood Rec Center and also the Valley Church, happening April 2nd with a rain date of April 16th. From 9 to noon.
All right. Does anybody have any questions, concerns? This thing happens every year.
I was just gonna joke about, I hope no one gets hit in the head by an egg. I mean, they're coming out of helicopters.
It's like the thing from WKR, right? It's
I
the
thought
person's
X
disease.
fly.
Someone I was talking to said, well, nobody will die. And I'm like, I guess if they don't throw a turkey out the helicopter. All jokes aside, exciting event. They want to do it at Shea. I just found my Easter eggs I can donate right before the meeting.
All right. If there are no questions or comments, we'll move on to item number 7 in our agenda, which is the Finance Committee, and I'd like to turn the floor over to our treasurer, Mrs. Campos.
Thank you, Mr. President. Monday evening, I attended the Norwood City Council Economic Development meeting where Annie Brossert, City Financial Advisor, and Pat Woodside, Legal Advisor, spoke on economic development. Mr. Brossert and Mr. Woodside updated City Council members on the current investment market, the bond market, and on current TIF agreements, as well as giving an overview on how a TIF works. The city acknowledged that the city school district partnership and thanked the district for working so closely on economic development. It was a very interesting meeting.
Okay.
On the agenda, monthly financials are attached, as well as a change order listings for construction. On 7.02, appropriation resolution, our budget for the current year. 7.03, a donation to Norwood Historical Society. The district is donating auditorium chairs and some select memorabilia from Allison Elementary to be used for a Historical Society fundraiser. 7.04, memorandum of understanding with Tri-State Technology Foundation. This MOU is required so that the planetarium can apply for grants for summer learning and after-school opportunities for our students. 7.05, we have 2 donations. Kroger Community Rewards to Avenues for Success, and the fume hood from Shepherd Chemicals, valued at $59,541. 7.06, a then and now purchase order that needs additional approval for Scholastic Book Fair. 7.07, the North Norwood parapet wall repair. This is the advertisement for bids. So I believe the bid date will be April 12th, and we will be running this in the paper, the advertisement for bids 2 weeks ahead of time. The advertisement will also be on our website for any contractors that wish to bid on that repair. 7.08, SHP amendment to add the lower west wing redesign at Williams. That's an additional cost to the architect of $5,600. And finally, 7.09, administrative salary schedule. Everything stayed the same. We were just adding the position of supervisor of special ed for the 22-23 school year. And that is all I have for finance.
All right, are there any questions, comments about the items on finance?
I was just gonna say, I'm glad you went to a city council meeting and talked about the TIFs and all that. I even had some longtime residents today telling me stories about how the school and the city didn't work together, and I said, yes, I've heard about that, and I can tell you that things are much better now. And we are doing this, and it is important that we work these TIFs out. And I told them a little bit about that, and they were like, oh, wow.
Yeah, they were very complimentary.
But they told me, oh, yeah, they didn't work together. And I was like, I've heard that.
Can't live in the past.
That's
Right, right. They were very happy that we are not anymore.
They actually thank the district several times for being easy to work with and for transparency. So, I mean, it's crucial that, you know, both parties work together for the best of the city. So that's what we're doing.
All right, if there are no other comments or concerns, I believe that is the end of the committee meeting. So can I have a motion to adjourn?
A motion. I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And we are adjourned from the committee meeting, but don't go anywhere because we've got one more.
I've
Got more excitement
Forgot
coming.
about that.
We'll be right back.
So I'd like to go ahead and call to order the Norwood City School District Board of Education Special Board Meeting for March 10th, 2022. Mrs. Camphouse, please call the roll.
Mr. Atwood,
Present?
Mrs. Cole,
Present.
Ms. Ballard,
Present.
Mrs. Rarica,
Present.
Mr. Taylor.
Present.
Did you catch me on the last meeting even though I got in late?
I added you. Yes.
You were coming.
All right, so there's no item here for the agenda. Going to go ahead and make a motion that we approve the special board meeting agenda as written.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Camphouse, please call the roll.
Mr. Atwood,
Yes.
Mrs. Cole,
Yes.
Ms. Ballard,
Yes.
Mrs. Rarica,
Yes.
Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
So with the agenda approved, we'll move right into the only item on the agenda, and that's, well, actually, there's two, the discussion and then the Education Committee report. So we'll go into discussion, which is the COVID update, and I'd like to turn the floor over to Superintendent Ronan.
Thank you, President Atwood. At this point in time, Hamilton County is in low incident of COVID spread. So at last week's DART team, which is our data analysis team that's been meeting every year for, I think the last year and a half, tracking data.
This week, 2 years.
Yep, the recommendation was that the K-6 mask mandate could be lifted. In addition, the desk shields could also be taken away, depending on the teacher or student's level of comfort. I do know we still have a number of students and staff members wearing masks, but it would not be a mandate. And that was the recommendation of the DART team. So we're here tonight to ask the board to officially approve that recommendation of the DART team.
Is there any questions or discussion on that? I was looking last night on the CDC's website, and as of last night, the incident rate per 100,000 is at 40.
Yay!
Yeah,
I
so
mean, that's amazing. They've dropped that quickly.
yes. So 3 weeks ago, it was 2,700 per 100,000, and
amazing.
3 weeks later, we're at 40. And then the percent positivity rate 3 weeks ago was at 40%, and as of last night, we're sitting at 2.89%. So, and you know, if you look at every other county and every other state, they're all following the same trend. So it's just like that across the board. You know, and people who questioned how could we kind of ease these things out, I saw really two big paths forward out of this. And one was where the CDC or the government would just officially declare COVID endemic instead of it being a pandemic. And then, you know, it would essentially be labeled the same as the flu. That would be one way out of this. That hasn't happened yet. We're still officially in a pandemic. And then the other way was that the CDC, I believe about 6 weeks ago, right after the first of the year, changed their guidelines and said that if you could hit two metrics, and one being have your incident rate be less than 50 per 100,000, and your percent positivity rate be less than 8%, then you could, you know, essentially not have to require indoor masking or any other protocols. And then a week before Friday, so the Friday before last Friday, they changed again.
Yes.
And so instead of that, then they went to this three-tier level where it's just high incident rate, moderate or low. And when they did that, Hamilton County immediately went into the moderate rate. So we waited another week. The CDC made that change at 4 p.m. on Friday. Our DART team met at 10:30 in the morning, so we met before the CDC met. And so we waited another week just to see how things were going. Everything was trending down, and you know, the health department is on board. Our school nurse, you know, is on board. You know,
Yes.
Everybody was kind of seeing the same thing and talking about the same thing. So I feel very comfortable with this recommendation.
And if, like you said, this change happened within 3 weeks, if this trend suddenly spikes, then we also have the option to revisit and implement those if needed, if we suddenly end up with another rise in numbers.
Absolutely.
I don't see it happening, but we didn't see being here 2 years later either, so I just want to
Right.
get that out there.
Yeah, so the beautiful thing about our ability to be flexible is that at any point in time, if the superintendent sees, you know, something happening in a specific class or in a specific grade or in a specific building, we can immediately take measures to contain that, right? It doesn't have, we only meet officially once a month in a meeting, you know, another time like this to discuss, but we don't move at the speed of a pandemic, right? But the nice thing is, you know, our superintendent and our administration has the ability to have that turn on a dime. And I think that's great. I'm glad that we've given our administration the ability to do that.
And we will continue to have phone conferences with the Hamilton County Health Commissioner and the medical director. We have one scheduled for March 25th. So that is ongoing, to your point, Amber. In case something were to change, we would hear about it and would be able to react. So we will still continue to monitor. Although today, late this afternoon, we actually got something from the Ohio Department of Health that says we no longer have to send notices home all the time if we have a positive case. So they have made some of those changes also, because we were doing weekly reporting to the Health Department. The Health Department was reporting to the Ohio Department of Health, and as you notice, we've sent hundreds of letters home in the course of the last year and a half. So right now, they have paused all of that also, because the numbers are so low.
So the DART team is going to meet tomorrow, and then after that, we're gonna scale back how often that team gets together.
Is that gonna be like twice a month maybe, or?
Probably, maybe twice a month, maybe once a month. It just depends. Maybe we'll start slow and meet every other week for a
I
little
was
bit.
gonna say, if we see a variant coming down the pike, we might go, hey, everybody.
Put out
gotta
the bat
meet.
signal, say.
Yeah, we'll put out the bat signal and meet.
Well,
Yeah.
I do want to make a
We're
note
so
that
flexible.
at the Southwest Conference dinner, the President's Award is always awarded usually to one person. This year, it was given to 25 people. It was given to a group of nurses, school nurses,
Oh.
specifically for all the work that they've been doing.
Mhm.
And I know that it didn't go to all nurses. It went to, a specific school and their district nurses, but I just want to put a thank you out to our nurses here who've been doing all the extra legwork, doing all the extra filing with the county and all the contact tracing and all the extra effort that has to go along with changing immediately based on whatever the state is doing that day. So I appreciated the state president acknowledging nurses for their
That's
work,
nice.
and I really think it's really important for us to acknowledge them as well.
That's very nice. Our nurse worked very hard. It's been a long year and a half. Our health aides, our nurse,
Yeah, the whole team.
it's been a
Right.
lot.
And all the parents' questions and the requirements changing constantly, when to test, how to test, how long do you quarantine? Just an insane amount of work.
Yeah. So the one thing I want to commend this group is in the 2 years that we've been dealing with this, we've never shied away from hearing from anybody or answering those hard questions. So, and then I also want to commend this group and the administration for the transparency. So that's, big congratulations to everybody. All right.
Made it to another side.
Right?
Maybe not the end, but
Don't let it hear you, Alice.
right, no.
Don't let it hear you. It'll
I'm
pop in.
completely prepared to take whatever on.
So
Got a
with that,
mask
we'll
right
move into
here, in case.
the Education Committee report, and I'd like to turn the floor over to Board Member Ms. Ballard.
Thank you, Mr. President. The recommended action, motion to remove the mask mandate for K through 6th grade students and desk partitions in all buildings as recommended by the DART team. I'd like to make a motion that we accept this motion as written.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Camp House, please call the roll.
Mr. Epley?
Yes?
Mrs. Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Ballard?
Yes.
Mrs. Rarica?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
With that, the motion has been approved. The last item on our agenda is adjournment. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.